Hey, what is up everybody? This is Blackblade, and took me long enough. For the two people who don't know, Among Us has been the gaming community's newest indie craze for some time now, matching the global standing of games like PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, Five Nights at Freddy's, or whatever game that Smash Bros. Fighter is from. Developed by Innersloth, a studio composed of members of the Newgrounds community, including the creator of the wonderfully hilarious Henry Stickmin series, this game is essentially a virtual online version of Mafia, as in the party game Mafia, not the 2K release. As the original was a terrific social experience, testing people's ability to deduce or even deceive their closest friends, and seeing how depraved everyone is from quarantine for social interaction, this game blew up at the perfect time, despite being out for a couple years now with not nearly as many people knowing of its existence. As a result, the sequel plan for the game has been postponed, with the developers stating they would instead work on refining this first game and adding the additional content they had thought of for the sequel to this one instead. One of these updates was the addition of a new stage, announced at the 2020 Game Awards and hopefully releasing around the same time this video does, which I think is a great way to keep the game fresh and relevant. And it also gave me a video idea. As most of you know, my plan after graduating college is to eventually pursue making games as a career path. One of my regrets with that is I haven't had the chance to learn a lot of the ins and outs of programming games. But through my extensive research, I've learned a lot about designing them, and this may be my first chance to use that knowledge publicly. That brings us to the topic of this video. Today we'll be creating our design for a new Among Us map that both retains the core identity of the game and offers some new and innovative features. I'm not gonna lie, my excitement for this one is through the roof. So let's stop wasting time and get started. Now before we design the map, we need to understand the fundamentals of this game. That way we can make something people actually want to play, and not mere HQ. Got it! This video is over 5 years old now. So then, let's find out as best we can what makes Among Us so enjoyable. The main factor we've already sorta covered. This game is not so much a display of skill or knowledge, but rather a social experience all about communication and deception. The meetings in between rounds where every player meets around a table and discusses, either through text or using a voice chat like Discord, are where the most fun comes from with this game. For example...
Alright, Josh.
That's a bra moment.
Wait, guys, I want to say something. So,
yeah?
What do you get when you melt sand down, okay?
Glass.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And what can you do with that?
You can make windows.
You can make windows! Ah!
Luckily for us, I don't think anything we do could directly affect that. But the same cannot be said, however, for an additional positive aspect to the game. Its simplicity. Among Us does not have a particularly complicated rule set, meaning even people who have little experience playing video games could enjoy it and follow it well enough. Outside of the investigative aspect to this game, the simplistic nature of the tasks add to the game's accessibility as well. One might be uncertain of this when they play their first game and are asked to fuel the engines, prime the shields, fix electrical wiring, chart a course for navigation.
Make the calculations for the jump to light speed.
But those worries quickly go away when you realize it all boils down to pushing buttons. Riveting. Honestly, it somehow really is, though the core of this game remains the conflict between crewmates and imposters. The murders and cross-examinations are more than enough to satisfy this aspect, but luckily the developers decided to make it a little more interesting than that. I'll confess that I have far more fun playing an imposter than a crewmate. Not that there's anything wrong with being a crewmate, but the gameplay for imposters provides a considerable number of options that allow for constructing strategies to win in new and creative ways. The two main skills at their disposal are the vents, simply allowing imposters to quickly travel between key locations, and even more so the sabotage ability. This ability covers so many tools, from closing doors, cutting lights to limit visibility, shutting off oxygen or power reactors for crises that, if not solved in time, result in imposter victory, and disabling communications as a way to not win ever. Okay, that's a little harsh. While more niche than their other abilities, sabotaging comms temporarily removes crewmates' task lists, jams the task completion bar, making its total progress a mystery, and most valuably, disables some crewmate abilities, leading us into the final major positive to Among Us's core gameplay. With players spread out across large maps, it'd be harder to pinpoint an imposter without being in the right spot at the right time. Luckily, each map has unique tools crewmates can use to better pinpoint an imposter's actions and narrow down the killer. This includes obvious stuff like cameras or crew vitals, to more unique ones like the door logs, or as I call them after watching Critical's stream highlights,
sacred Jedi texts!
These additional tools not only make things more interesting for both teams, but they give the maps more life. So yeah, that pretty much wraps up the important elements of this game, but upon second thought, we did forget one key ingredient, something no map can go without, as it is hands down the most important part of the Among Us experience. Starting every round with
Pepis.
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 Bright!
Alright, now I think we're good to go, but just to be sure, let's put together a list of what exactly this new map should include. First, and most obvious, it has to be something different. We can't just make a bigger skeld and call it a day. This has to conceptually stand out while also keeping with the sci-fi theme. Next, we need to have crewmate tasks that fit the map and are also relatively straightforward. To make things a little simpler, I decided to find the mean of the current 3 maps to see how many of their tasks were completely unique, and how many carried over to at least one other map. Doing so, I found our map should have a pool of roughly 20 tasks, with 7 unique ones and 13 returning. Additionally, I limited myself to taking too many unique tasks from other maps, so it remained as close as possible to the average. On a smaller note, but as the next piece on the list, the map not only needs a unique layout, but new rooms to go with the new tasks. There don't have to be too many unique locations, in fact any more than 4 I'd say is too much, but new areas will force imposters to come up with more creative alibis. That leaves the final must-have feature, map abilities. While 1 or 2 from previous maps can return, aside from of course the Sacred Jedi tech. Okay, I'll stop. There should be one new ability fitting the map's theme to give it some added life. Now while those are the 4 key points, there is one more thing I kept in mind when putting this together. As the new maps are intended to keep the game fresh and alive, I wanted something that makes this map play differently than the other 3, while not being too gimmicky that it turns this map into one you only play once or twice to try out and then never touch again. Once that was settled, I got to work on the new map. I went back and forth on a couple design choices, but ultimately came up with this. This is the base. It's underground, so I made this elevator go up and down from it. It's got lava down there, so I put it under a volcano. This is my uncle. He wanted to be an astronaut, so I drew him in a spacesuit. I miss grade school. Let's try this again. Allow me to introduce you to my custom designed map for Among Us. The prototype name, Subterra. This research facility was constructed beneath the surface to expand scientific understanding of what goes on closer to a planet's core. All crew members are transported to the site by elevator, and from there the crew spreads out in 3 directions depending on their rank and occupation, with engineers heading to the east side, scientists to the west, and supervisors straight down to the command deck. Translating that for game design purposes, let's cover each section of the map. All players begin in the elevator room, similar to the opening of Polis and Mira HQ. As with those two, this room serves more as a spawn point than an integral room. Tasks here are limited to a couple shorter common ones, and perhaps a panel for fixing wires, but nothing beyond that. Heading out the elevator, the crewmates come to a gateway separating the east and west wings, but before them are doorways to 2 all-purpose rooms for the team, storage and electrical. As most of the other maps have these 2 rooms be key points for starting long tasks, I feel having them closer to spawn would have the longer tasks start sooner and limit the number of massive sections on the map for imposters to avoid kills, because trust me, There's still plenty of red zones like that as we progress. Anyway, most of the map's middle is a divider wall between the two wings, with travel between them centered around 3 connectors. We've covered the first by spawn, but in the very center of the map we have the cafeteria. As one would expect, this room contains the emergency meeting button, and after each meeting is where players resume for the next round. As the last connector, on the bottom of the map, we have good ol' admin, home of the most infuriating task in the entire game. This map's admin room is busier and more accessible than the ones from the previous maps, contributing to its unique identity. Now that the central points in the map have been covered, let's talk about the 2 wings, starting with the west. Both wings contain hallways with a considerable amount of width, similar to the outdoor sections of Polis, but still being inside, ergo no decontamination rooms. In the bottom left, we have one of the more isolated rooms on the map, the observatory. This room is an interesting one, being an important ability location like the cams rooms of the past, while also containing some important tasks. Up from the observatory, we reach the laboratory, a 2-part room hosting many longer tasks, which as a result makes it especially vulnerable and a likely candidate room for this map's unique sabotage, which we'll discuss later. Finally, the lab contains the only entrance to this map's medbay. The main thing to note about this medbay compared to the ones from previous maps is that it doubles as a crew ability room, alongside admin and observatory. This covers the west wing, leaving only the east wing unexplored. Heading over through the cafeteria or admin will take you out right beside an isolated communications room, which I'll admit it's just a carbon copy of the one on Polis. These rooms can't all be winners, and also, who actually cares about communications? The real point of interest in this wing is the massive conglomerate room, containing O2 in the bottom right, which is also a pretty standard O2 room, and as the large centerpiece, this map's most notable new room, the turbine, or alternatively, the generator. Don't be fooled by its size on this map, as much of this room would be taken up by a hulking beast of a power turbine with multiple terminals or access points for different tasks involving it. This is the room I'm most curious to see how it would function in-game, but it's not the last stop on this tour of the map. That would go to the room just above it, and similarly to the medbay and laboratory, only accessible by going through the turbine room. This, of course, is the boiler room, aka the most likely spot to commit a murder that may never be discovered in thousands of years. And that concludes our tour of the research outpost of Terra. But we're not done yet, because we still need to go over the mechanics of this map. Starting with the crewmate tasks, I came up with a selection that I felt would fit the theme of the map in concordance with our mean totals I stated earlier in the video. Again, 13 tasks are retaining ones from the first 3 maps, and since I can't think of much to add to explaining them, I'll just list what they are. Repair drill, record temperature, swipe card, submit scan, unlock manifolds, fix wiring, clean O2 filter, assemble artifact, divert power, empty garbage, store artifacts, prime shields, and fuel engines. A few of these would have slight differences to other maps, such as the garbage being emptied into the pools of magma and being incinerated, but mechanically, nothing much would change here. This leaves 7 unique tasks, of which I will go over now. The first of these is Send Up Elevator, a common task from the start of the map which has you press a button on an elevator control panel, taking it to the top floor. Next up, we have Vent Fumes, a long, common task similar to Fix Wiring where you interact with terminals in different parts of the map, showing a schematic of the station's exhaust vents, requiring some button prompt or swipe motion to open the vents and release fumes. After that, we have Regulate Temperature, a short task I see being in the cafeteria or admin. This task would involve dragging a bar on a thermometer to a required level. Scolding from parents for raising the electric bill is optional. Our fourth task is Collect Minerals, a long task similar in design to clear asteroids, but instead have you scooping rocks out of a pool of magma. Moving on to our fifth, we have a short task in the cafeteria to drink water. For this one, you simply go up to a water fountain, press in to get the faucet running, and drink some water, because hydration is very important. Once refreshed, we move on to the sixth task, making use of the massive generator room. Repair Turbine would be the unique visual task for this map, where upon bringing up a panel and holding an obvious power button down for 3 seconds would cause the turbine as a whole to pause its rotating momentarily, then gradually return to a normal pace. Finally, we have report findings, a short, potentially visual task in admin in which you open up a computer and start a virtual meeting. I especially want to see this one make it in because, come on now, we all want to hear what these crewmates would sound like.
$19 Fortnite card. Who wants it?
You know what? I changed my mind. And now that we have the map layout and the list of available tasks, it's time to go over the last and most important part to distinguish this new map: the abilities. Starting with the crewmate abilities, I already mentioned 2 returning ones. Admin would still include admin, because otherwise it wouldn't really be admin. And vitals, carried over once again from Polis, can you tell what my favorite map was, would be contained in medbay. That leaves one more ability, one that would easily be my favorite compared to all others in the game. Skilled and Polis both have cameras as a staple ability, and I love the idea of being able to see multiple areas of the map at once. But what if we make it not just a measure of security for potential imposters, but for a potential threat this research facility could have to deal with: magma. As such, in place of cameras, this map would include a thermal detector kept in the observatory that features a map of the whole facility. While viewed by a player, this map would feature a sonar scan, highlighting any heat signatures detected in the site as a green blip. As it sweeps the area by rotational scan, it would not show one-to-one movement, but players could still pinpoint a few irregularities, such as a sudden blip appearing out of nowhere indicating an imposter appearing from a vent, or 2 blips in a spot of the map being reduced to 1 signifying a death. That's not all this map would showcase though, because there's one last part of this map, and the most important feature of it, that we still need to cover as part of the imposter gameplay. Vents would remain the same as always for this map, and sabotages would be fairly in line with how they are on previous ones, with closing doors, shutting off lights, disabling communications, and cutting off oxygen. For experienced players of this game though, you're probably wondering where the reactor meltdown is. Well, Subterra is fortunate enough to not rely on nuclear power. Instead, with the resources surrounding the underground section of the site, they rely on the environmentally friendly method of geothermal energy. What a great idea the team here had. It's only unfortunate then that tapping into an endless supply of magma could result in accidents. As a new feature to Subterra, I propose imposters can sabotage various sections of the map that gather external sources of energy, resulting in magma pouring out and coating the floor. To combat this, crewmates would have to find a terminal nearby the spill that would seal off the leak and suck up the magma covering the ground. These leaks could also be seen with the thermal detector, in case a crewmate in the observatory hears the warning siren and wishes to solve the crisis. If you aren't as excited about this idea as I am, then take a moment and think about just how much more dynamic this feature would make the map. Imposters could block off a room with magma, keeping a body hidden or holding back a crewmate with important intel for just a few more seconds. They could delay a task in a room from being reachable, or my personal favorite use, can even get indirect kills on unobservant crewmates without garnering suspicion. This one skill, I think, could help seal Subterra as a unique, memorable map that gets revisited frequently and, I would hope, becomes a staple for active and recurring players. And with that, the designing is complete. Subterra as a concept has been fully laid out, and as a result, I really want to play it now. So let's see how lucky I get. At the time this video goes live, I will be sharing it, along with a written outline of the map, to the emails provided at Innersloth's About page. My hope is that, time allotting, the developers appreciate what I've done here and incorporate at least some of the new ideas into their next map. I know, I'm dreaming big here, and they probably get suggestions or submissions like this all the time, but this is a way for me to show my respect towards the amount of effort and dedication these developers have put into making this game the best it can be. Innersloth, if you're watching this video, I just want to say thank you, and I wish you all the best going forwards. But please let me know if you use any of these ideas so I can put it on my portfolio. Thank you. On that note, that's going to be it for this video. I know I'm very late to the punch in talking about this game, but if you watched it this far anyway, I want you to know I appreciate your support. It's because of it that I continue to make videos to this day, and I don't want you to ever doubt that I value it. So once again, thank you. And of course, if you all enjoyed, be sure to slice that like button in half, subscribe to my channel if you are new, and comment down below what you thought of the map, any ideas of your own you'd like to share, or just what you had for breakfast. I'd love to hear what you have to say, so feel free to comment below. Once again though, hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you all next time. Goodbye. Alright, so Dan, you know I was with you during that time. Just found Annie's body and I...
with me for the entire time, so...
That was not me.
I'm
swear.
sorry.
It was a suicide.
Well, do you need me to defend myself now?